Welcome, everybody, and good evening. This is the Tuesday, September 19th meeting of the City Council. It's about 6:12. I will call this meeting to order, and we're going to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag and an invocation by Councilmember Pogorlich.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing. Thank you. Dear Lord, we thank you for all the blessings that you have bestowed upon us. We thank you for all of our employees who have worked tirelessly after Irma came through to get our city back to normal, even though they probably have issues at their own homes. We thank you for our first responders who are working tirelessly as well, helping others here and elsewhere. We ask for your blessings as Maria pushes her way through Puerto Rico and elsewhere. And we ask that the kindness and consideration and cooperation that we've all seen after the Irma storm continues throughout the rest of this year at least. All this we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, the first item on the agenda is recognitions, proclamations, presentations, and board appointments. I have the School Support Committee. Appointment, there are two applicants who applied for the opening, Joseph Cable and Michelle Peters. If the applicants are here and they would like to speak, please come forward. I know one of them, Michelle, I believe, spoke at the last meeting. Each council member has a ballot to vote for their top applicant to serve on the School Support Committee. Please pass the completed ballot to the city clerk, and she will tally the vote. And again, thank you to the people who are volunteering to serve in our communities. It's very important. Thank you. The council has selected Joseph Cable to sit on the School Support Committee. Thank you very much for everyone for putting in for these positions. It's very important and valuable to our city. Next item on the agenda is minutes of the previous meeting. Oh, we need a motion. I'm sorry. And I will need a motion to approve the appointment of Joseph Cable to the School Support Committee for term extending from September 19th, 2017 until September 19th, 2020.
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion, a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. Motion is carried. Sorry. We'll now move to item 2, which is the minutes of the previous meeting. If the minutes are acceptable, I will entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Move to approve the minutes of the September 5th meeting.
There's a motion and there's a second by Councilmember Gorlich. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say nay. We're moving to item 3, which is persons wish to be heard on items not listed on the agenda. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Please give your name and address. And I have quite a few people who want to speak here today. The first item is Jan Tumbleson. She would like to speak about the praising the city. Your name and address, please, and 3 minutes.
Jan Tumbleson, 208 Holland Avenue. I want to praise the city because, everybody was out there helping the residents, and all the employees were out there filling up sandbags and doing everything they could to help the residents, and we really appreciate it if no one else says it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next person who would like to speak on items not on the agenda is John Kennedy. He would like to address CERT. Please, your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
I think y'all know me by now. It's John Kennedy, 6117 East 111th Avenue. I hope I don't piss anybody off and they start yelling at me today, because if you do, I'm going to yell back. I wear multiple hats in this city. One of them is this one. This is a CERT hat. I've been the CERT team leader in Temple Terrace since 2003. Voluntary position. You look at the back of my jacket, okay? This is a completely volunteer. As far as I know, I am the only CERT person in Temple Terrace. There are multiple in Hillsborough County. They know what CERT is. Evidently, Temple Terrace doesn't. Sunday night at 8:45, I tried to call the police department, and I couldn't get Como through. I tried to get Tampa to call twice. They couldn't get through. Now, I have one phone here. I have one phone in here, and I have a tablet here. 3 forms of communication at all times during an emergency. Why doesn't our police department? You tell me. Now, this little hat here, anybody know what a Green Beret actually is? No, you don't. None of y'all have been in the military, have you? You got a police chief that doesn't even know what a Green Beret is, and he was stationed at Fort Bragg. Now, I'm a Green Beret medic. I am trained to be a medic, yes, but I'm also trained to be a doctor. In the field, I'm considered expert at what I do. I'm expected to be able to set up a field hospital taking care of 300 up to a battalion-sized force of indigent personnel and my team. I'm expected to train all the medics. I am the complete oversight for that hospital. And Monday morning, when I came up here at 7:45 in the morning to establish contact with your police department, communications supervisor, John, have you got a police emergency? I don't have time to talk to you. Okay? Stanton, Supervisor Stanton, disregarded my help, disrespected me when I asked him, please call me John Kennedy. Mr. Kennedy, in fact. No, your name is John. Well, guess what I told him? Your name. Okay? That's the way it is.
Mr. Kennedy, I'm going to ask you to please maintain your lack of
no,
profanity
okay,
during your
no,
discussions here. I'm
okay.
going to ask you to stop.
Profanity is profanity. It was not a profane word.
Mr.
Okay?
Mr.
Okay,
Kennedy, you're
somebody
done with your
just-
time. I'm
just
sorry, you've
disregard
broken the
my
rules of the council
enthusiasm.
chamber.
Okay? Now, when I
Mr.
tried to
Kennedy,
talk-
your 3 minutes is up, please.
When I tried to talk to
Mr.
Councilman
Kennedy.
Ross, he
Mr.
started
Kennedy,
yelling at me in the middle of Publix, okay?
Mr. Kennedy, your time has
I
expired.
understand my time is
You
expired. My
have
time
violated,
in Temple
you
Terrace
have
is not
violated
expired.
the
I will
rules
be
that we've
here
established here to go
continuous.
ahead and speak at council meetings.
Heaven forbid, you should have something to say that takes longer than 3 minutes.
Good job. The next speaker we have who would like to speak on Hurricane Irma is Robert Berlin. Please state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes. And if everybody would like me to read what the rules are about discussing things on council, I could go to it, but it's written down on the form there for you, for everyone to read prior to them addressing council, and it does express how you should appropriately address council.
Always clean. My name is Robert Berlin, 11795 Raintree Drive. I like to praise the city also, and also I want to praise Tico on working very hard on getting everybody's power back. One point I'd like to make is next time, hopefully, now, from now to the end of the season, we aren't going to have any more storms. if we do, and if we are going to hand out sandbags, please give people more time and not just a couple days. And I think it will basically help everybody else that won't be standing in very long lines for a couple of days. Like I said, everybody else, I think, worked hard. They did a great job. And we were just very fortunate that the storm just basically turned how it did. And we were spared. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert.
Thank you. The next speaker who would like to speak today is Anne Marie Nectar. She would like to speak on hurricane communications or lack thereof. Please state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Vice Mayor and City Council. Anne Marie Nichter, 904 Druid Hills Road, Temple Terrace, Florida. I am not coming up here to complain that my trees haven't been picked up. I'm not complaining about the power. I feel we are very blessed that it wasn't worse. However, I do think the city could have done a better job of communicating during the hurricane. I picked up the newspaper on Sunday, and there was nothing in it about Temple Terrace. Monday, we didn't get a paper. Tuesday, we got Monday and Tuesday's paper. There still was nothing about Temple Terrace. There were sections in the paper about Hillsborough County, Pinellas County, the city of Tampa, Pasco County, Hernando County, but nothing about city of Temple Terrace, what was open, what was closed. There was nothing about garbage pickup. There was nothing about debris pickup. Absolutely zilch. So I went to the website. The website said, please go to our Facebook page. I'm not on Facebook. I'm not old, but I'm not on Facebook. But we have a lot of residents here who are not on Facebook, don't even have computers, but they do read the newspaper. I'm told we have a new communications person. What were they doing during this storm? On Tuesday and Wednesday, I went to Lightfoot. Lightfoot opened up the center for people to use air conditioning and charging their everything, which I did, and I really appreciated it, and I told those people several times. However, a lot of people didn't know it was open because, again, there was no communication to let people know that Lightfoot was open. There were a few people. It was kind of, one day it was like a library, and the next day there were a bunch of kids. But it was fine. It was a chance to sit in air conditioning and a chance to charge my phone, my tablet, my computer, and whatever. So I thought that was a great idea, whosever idea it was, but you got to get the word out. I think we could have done a better job, or the city could have done a better job of letting people know about the curfew. I understand we had a curfew. I never saw anything about a curfew, but I understand we had one. Okay. Which stoplights were out on 56th Street and Fowler? What was open? What was closed? When they're going to start picking up debris? There was absolutely nothing. Now, I spent 5 different times in Haiti for a medical mission with Corpus Christi. And while in Haiti, the person that was running our mission every day would send an email from Haiti. Now, Haiti has no electricity, okay? But she could send an email every day with pictures, a massive email telling people what we were doing every day. So I would think that the city could do the same thing. On the other hand, I know my time is up, but everybody in Temple Terrace was great. The neighbors, the friends, everybody helped each other out, and I was very proud to live in Temple Terrace. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next person who would like to speak on reference to storm is Mel Harado.
Mel Harado, 5406 River Hills Drive, Vice Mayor Boss, council members. It is so nice to be here rather than where we were a week ago today, cleaning up our yards and debris. But actually, my comments go back 11 days ago. It was a Friday evening, and I was made aware that our first responders would be going to our Temple Terrace EOC Saturday, 8 o'clock report time. It was not a complaint, but just in passing found out, hey, we were told not to expect any hot meals until after the storm passed, probably sometime Monday. So there was some mobilization and a big shout out to Publix on 53rd, where the manager, Todd, actually stepped up, and it was rotisserie chickens, and it was salads, and it was breads, and it was bakery. The Lupton family who jumped in. First Baptist Church organized a grab and go for our police and fire to be able to get items. But beyond the shout out, beyond our city limits, it's to your city staff council members. As we pulled up at the EOC before official report time, literally, and one of them's in the room today, Carl didn't walk out to the 3 cars that were piled high with, I think, over 200 loaves of bread. He kind of sprinted with a big smile. Teresa, our head librarian, kind of ran out and started immediately shuffling things back and forth. Officer Baldwin, other officers that were there stopped, and it was just a joyful, positive, consummate professionals, and what a delight. Post-hurricane, as I've been out walking neighborhoods, crisscrossing with your public works trucks, and it's always a beep and a wave and big smiles. I know they're working long hours, but they are absolutely great servant leaders in our community. They were out Saturday night, I think past 7 o'clock, working Saturday. They were out late on Friday night. So I just want to thank really our city staff, but certainly Council Vice Mayor, just praise, nothing but praise for how our city has handled this storm. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. The next person that would like to speak is Julie Benton. She would like to speak about 607 East River Drive. Please come to the microphone and give your name and address for the record.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Julie Benton at 607 East River Drive. I'm here today because of violations that was in my home that didn't get taken care of like it should have been, in which it caused by leakage with my sewage and water, caused my light bill to be $386, in which I tried to talk to the water bill people about taking care of it, but they said until it's fixed, I'm still responsible for this bill. So I was here trying to see about getting help. How can I get help with getting this taken care of? Because I'm no longer in the home due to all the violations. So Section 8 had me to move out of the home. But I'm still liable for this water bill here with Temple Terrace. And I didn't want to leave with leaving something here on Temple Terrace as towards this bill. So I've been down here several times to try to correct this matter, to be told Temple Terrace could care less. Tom Baroni informed me that no one in here could care less about what I'm going through. I'm disabled. I don't have the money to pay it. And with all these violations, I feel we should have been in here towards getting this matter taken care of. But every person I came to in the building just told me they can care less. This is not important. But I'm here with this bill here that I will see if I can get help to get this taken care of.
Ma'am, we normally want, if we address it, we'll address it at the end of the council meeting. We just, this
Can you
is for public
stay?
comment. So if you would like to stay, we can look to address that at the end to see what the situation going on is, because obviously we don't run the day-to-day operations. So if you stay through the end of the meeting, we can possibly address it at that time.
Okay, yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I do have no further requests to speak. If anyone else would like to speak on items that
I
are
think
not
you
on.
do. I see someone in the audience who I know wants to speak. Did you?
They signed in, but they didn't fill out a form. They just signed in.
Okay, well, if you would like to speak, please come forward and state your name and address, and
Okay, didn't understand what they had to do.
go ahead and you have 3 minutes. Please provide your name and address.
Thank you. My name is Jess Woodall. I live at 9206 Knights Branch Street, Temple Terrace. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for this opportunity to speak. I was here not too long ago. I'm speaking about a retention pond on the corner of 78th Street and Temple Terrace Highway. We've had an issue about ownership, but this is not dealing with that at all. Mr. Stevenson and I, we've met, and we're trying to work through the paperwork and the documentation that you needed. We've kind of hit a block with the lending institutions on the 2 people that have mortgages on the property. I'm speaking about a flooding situation that took place thanks to Irma. Now, I've lived in this house for 37 years, so I'm very familiar with the level of the water where it should be in that pond. And I noticed it was much closer to the fence than it had been. So Tuesday, prior to the storm, I called and I said, please have somebody come out here, check this pump and turn it on, because we get the rains we're expected to get, we're gonna have some issues. And called again on Wednesday, and on Friday, a young man by the name of Nathan, excuse me, Public Works Department called me and said, and explained to me a situation with that pond. He said, well, the problem is the pump that's on there, it's a submersible pump. I said, yes. And he says, for whatever reason, either the level of the water has changed. Now the submersible pump does not stay underwater. So when the level of the pond reaches a certain level, there's a float ball there, and it turns the pump on, it's supposed to pump it out. Well, since the pump is exposed, it overheats and it shuts off, and it doesn't pump the pond down to the level that it should be. And we've got two other people that's going to be speaking. Some of them brought pictures. My house is 62 feet 8 inches from the edge of my pool to the fence at the pond, and I was within 4 inches of having water in my swimming pool. And there's a lot of other people that had water almost into their homes. So my issue is, and Nathan even said, well, we had to make an adjustment and bend the arm on that float valve so that it would allow the water to be deeper than normal to cover the bottom of that submersible pump so that it would run. But the problem is, it kicks on, it runs as soon as the level gets below that pump, the pump overheats, and guess what? It shuts off. Now, you did bring out a diesel pump, and that's what was the saving grace of getting the water pumped out of there. But we had a little rain 2 nights after the storm, and it flooded the yards again. So we got a major issue there that needs to be looked at. Thank you.
And I'm guessing we must have other people who would like to speak on this. Please come forward, state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
My name's John Underwood, and I'm from 9208 Knights Branch Street. And I have the same problem with the retention pond. And about 3 years ago, when I bought the property, the retention pond was clean. And it has grown up since. And there's a great deal of brush and trees and so forth. And that's damming up the water from getting to the pump that Woody just talked about. And as a result, the water sits there constantly, and that's why we have so many mosquitoes and things of that nature. So in order to keep it from flooding our houses, we need right now, we need ditch dug so that the damming effect will no longer exist, and the water will run to the sump pump and be pumped out. And then later on, when the weather allows, we need the retention pond cleaned out so that the water can reach its proper level, and that we won't have the flooding problem that we have now. It came within, it got into my workshop, and it came up very close to my house. And another individual who will speak here, it came up 2 inches on his sandbags. And not only that, but it flooded the streets besides. And so there was probably about a dozen houses that were in danger of being flooded at that time. So we need something done soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. And the next person would like to come forward, please state your name and address. And if possible, if we could just fill out a form and turn it into the city clerk so she can get your names properly recorded
Yes,
for
sir.
her records.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Carrie Keenan, 7804 Ballara Drive. And thank you so much for allowing us to come. Can I approach the bench and give you these pictures? I'll start one at one end. And the pictures are the same. It's 4 different pictures of our front and backyards there on Monday morning after the storm. But guys, this was a serious situation. I thank you very much. Everybody was praising the city, and I will too, for the sandbags and the other service that you guys have all provided. It's been great. and we much appreciate it. And you can look on the picture, the sandbag saved our our room there. The water was up on the sandbag about that far, and if we wouldn't have had those, it would have been in the house. But there has to be a way to solve that sump pump problem. Again, I don't think the water's getting over to the float. And if the float isn't, being affected by the water, the pump won't go on. And if, I don't know if this is even possible, but we have several guys on that block who could manually go and turn that pump on in any kind of emergency situation. I don't know if that's allowed. But any kind of way we can solve this, we would really appreciate it. Again, that's just my house. You can see John Underwood's house there in the background. And we want to work with you all and would be volunteers, willing volunteers to man it and start it manually ourselves. But somehow I'm sure we can get it solved, and we appreciate all the help that you have given us, and hopefully in the future here, we'll have this where it won't be a problem again for anybody. Cars could hardly pass. Trucks had to go through it when it was at its highest there in the front yard. Ballara Drive was up to my knee, and that's a pretty high knee. So. But again, thank you for all that you've done through this situation.
Thank you.
For all of us. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you. I again have no other forms before me. If there's anyone else who would like to speak, please do so. But if not, I just want to read one thing for those people who may not speak on items on the agenda, not on the agenda before, or request to speak before council. Just want to read you one of the paragraphs regarding the council and what we're requesting you do. When you're recognized by the mayor to speak, you must come to the speaker's podium and clearly state your name and address for the record. Personal, impertinent, slanderous remarks are not permitted, and any persons making such remarks who become boisterous while addressing the council shall be barred from further audience before the council by mayor. So if at some future point some members of the city are barred from being here, it is of their own conduct and their own volition. But since we have no more items, it just spelled out there for everyone. We're going to continue on our agenda. The next item is communications and petitions. We have none. Consent agenda, we have none. We're going to go to public hearings. The first item on our public hearings is item A resolution approving the annual renewal of the public safety radio maintenance agreement with Communications International. That item is actually going to get moved to the end of the public hearings and resolutions. So we'll move on to item B, which is a resolution approving the land disposal review criteria in the redevelopment area. The city manager will explain.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. The resolution
Bless
before you, I'm sorry?
You're okay.
Bless you.
It was a sneeze.
Huh?
Somebody sneezed.
Oh, God bless you.
As you were.
I didn't know that was a sneeze. There's a resolution before council this evening as a result of our redevelopment agency meeting just a few minutes ago. There was a recommendation that was made to approve the resolution adopting land disposal review criteria for the purpose of providing some consistent application and procedure to review the sale of city-owned property. Staff recommends approval of this resolution on the council level. Not much more to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on this item? If not, I will go open it for council discussion. Is there any discussion from council?
Ready to make a motion?
Okay, if it's acceptable, I'll entertain a motion to approve the land disposal review criteria in the redevelopment area.
So moved.
There's a motion by Councilmember Pogorlich, and I believe Councilmember Donahue seconded it. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion is carried. Item C. Start getting to the trickier stuff now. This is the second public hearing on the fiscal year 2017-2018 millage rate and the fiscal operating budget and capital improvement. I'm going to open the public hearing on the tentative millage rate for ad valorem tax levy for 2017-2018 and budgets for fiscal year 2017-2018. And the city manager make a presentation to include the explanation as the adoption of resolution to correct information regarding adoption of tentative millage rate.
Thank you,
City Manager
Mr.
Stevenson.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. There is a resolution here to amend the Resolution 103-17 that established a tentative millage rate at our last meeting. The reading of the resolution to establish that 2017-2018 tax levy rate contained an error in the reporting. In order to avoid an identical mistake that was made in the past, the correct information to transmit the correct information, Department of Revenue, I'm sorry. The resolution that was read last meeting incorrectly identified the adjusted rollback rate rather than the rollback rate. Although the adjusted rollback rate is important to the DOR, they're looking for an adopted resolution and ordinance that adopts the ad valorem tax levy in relationship to the rollback and not the adjusted. The rollback was accurately stated on the trim notices provided to the property owners in August. The tax millage and rollback information has been verified for accuracy with the representatives from the DOR. We're confident that we have the right information. This is a resolution to amend the previous resolution. And for the record, I'd like to read the ad valorem tax millage correct into the record. The tax millage rate for fiscal year 2017-2018 is established as 6.955 mils. Said millage rate is 0.2494 mils, or 3.72% more than rollback rate of 6.7056. Approval of this amended resolution should give us the correct information to transmit to DOR, and will put us in good shape with the requirements of the Department of Revenue. Staff recommends approval of the amended resolution.
Okay, I have a note on here saying after you've explained that regarding our millage rate, the first issue for discussion is the percentage increase in millage over the rollback rate necessary to fund the budget and the purposes for which millage is being increased.
Mr. Vice Mayor, under the statutory procedure under 200.065, there are certain things that need to be done in certain orders. And so that's why the notes that you have indicate that the first issue for discussion is to discuss the percentage increase in millage over the rollback rate necessary to fund the budget. That's something to be explained, and then to the extent that we open up for public comments about the budget and the tax levy generally, you can certainly do so, but that's one of the statutory requirements.
Thank you. Now I would ask for public comments on both the millage rate and the city's budgets. Is there anyone who would like to speak regarding the millage rate or the budgets? Seeing none, we will go for council member comments or questions.
I have a
Councilmember Ross.
question. Maybe I was reading while somebody was talking, but are we talking about 6C or 6D? 6D?
Mr. Ross, the public hearing remains open throughout 6D, E, and F. So I guess for purpose of the agenda, if we had subsections under it so that we had 6C, then 6C 1, 2, and 3, we could have done it that way. But so the public hearing is going to remain open while the resolution and the two ordinances are adopted.
Okay, so when we discuss or move or second or vote, we're voting for C, D, E, and F.
Well, what you'll do is give an opportunity for anyone to provide comments on the tax millage or the budget. And then after everybody has provided comments on those, and you've had any discussion that you want, and you want to make any adjustments to either the budget or the millage rates, then after all of that is done, then we simply go through a process of adopting the resolution and the ordinances. We have discussion on all of it take place at the same time.
Okay, thank you.
So we are open for public comments now, and part of the public hearing on item C, 6C, which is the tentative millage rate and operating budget. D, the resolution, amending resolutions 103-17, establishing the tentative millage rate. E, the public hearing and final reading of an ordinance adopting the fiscal year 2018 tax levy. And F, a public hearing and final reading of an ordinance adopting the fiscal year 2017-2018 operating budget and capital improvement budget. Is there anyone on the audience who would like to discuss any of those items? Seeing no public comment, if deemed appropriate, consider amendments to the tentative budget, recompute the proposed. Do we have any amendments to this for pursuant? This is council discussion now on any questions or any council member comments or questions?
I do have a question. We were given another revised version of the budget. What's different in this than what we previously read?
The information that you previously read is included in here. Also included in here are the narratives from each department, as well as performance measures that get included at this time.
So the numbers are the same?
The numbers are the same, yes. That is your final budget. We will get it, we will correct it. We've got some eyes looking at it for typos and whatnot. You will receive this once we get a final version, a nice bound copy of it will be delivered to everybody.
Is there any other discussion from council or any other comments or questions?
And Mr. Vice Mayor, if I could just ask, getting back to the statement that we discussed earlier about the first issue for discussion being the percentage and increase in millage rate over the rolled back rate necessary to fund the budget, if we could just, in order to satisfy that requirement, have a brief statement as to, from staff as to principally what's being funded by the increase over the rolled back rate, just so everybody's clear.
That should be well entertained.
Yeah, so I read what the statutory requirement is. Now, if we could have a brief statement just to explain why, why there is an increase over the rollback rate.
Yeah, the recommended tax millage rate for the fiscal year 2017-2018, that's the millage tax levy, is 6.955 mils per $1,000 of assessed value, which is 1/4 of 1 mil reduction in the ad valorem rate than the current rate of 7.205. This recommended property tax levy rate is 0.2494 mils, or 3.72% higher than the statutory rollback rate of 6.7056.
And the increase in the rollback rate is necessary to fund certain items in the budget. Just wanted generally speaking, the items in the budget that will be funded from the increase in the rollback rate include what kinds of items?
If I may, I think what you're getting at is, just for everybody's edification, there's a 0% increase in the water and sewer fees. There's a 0% increase in the commercial sanitation rates, a 0% increase in single-family residential sanitation rates. $856,400 is going towards general fund capital improvement programs. $1,958,000 in community investment tax fund expenditures to replace public safety vehicles and equipment, public works vehicles and equipment, and to refurbish public facilities and park facilities. That includes the boardwalk in River Hills Park. $2,008,000 in utility system improvements and vehicle replacements. $475,000 in sanitation vehicle replacements and equipment. $1,001,000 in street, sidewalk, bicycle trail, and drainage improvements. Hopefully that includes a new pump. $1,165,000. I just said that. We're adding 4.5 new full-time equivalent positions on the rolls, 1 firefighter, 2 police officers, 1 code enforcement administrative assistant, and a half full-time employee in the Human Resource Department. We're supporting the city health insurance without any increase to the employees, a 3% salary increase for general employees, and an increase in the debt service payments to assume the full cost of the Temple Terrace Golf and Country Club annual debt payments. Does that do it for you, Mr. Conley?
Thank you very much. Yes, sir.
My pleasure. Anytime.
So we're not making any changes to the budget or have to recompute the proposed millage rate, and the public announced the percent, if any, by which has been recomputed, and we've made all the appropriate announcements. Now, do we have to vote on item C?
No, there's no vote on item C. That's just the opening the public hearing. So the
Now we're
first
going on
item
D.
to vote on would be D, which would be the resolution amending the previous resolution relating to the tentative millage rate.
On item D, I will entertain a motion to approve a resolution to correct information in Resolution 103-17 establishing the city's tentative millage rate.
I move to amend Resolution 103-17, adjusting the tentative millage rate to 6.955 from 6.7056.
Second?
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on it? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. Item E is a public hearing and final reading of an ordinance adopting the fiscal year 2017-2018 tax levy. I would ask the city clerk to read the title of the tax levy ordinance.
An ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, adopting a millage rate of 6.955 mils for fiscal year 2017 through 2018, said millage rate being .2494 mils, or 3.72% more than the rollback rate of 6.7056 mils, providing a severability clause and providing an effective date.
All those in,
You need a motion to approve.
I need a motion to approve that, please. Sorry.
Item E, correct?
Item E. I'll entertain a motion to approve the ordinance.
Move to approve the ordinance establishing an adopted millage rate of 6.955 mils.
Second?
Motion is second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay. We're going to move to item F, which is public hearing and final reading of an ordinance adopting the fiscal year 2017-2018 operating budget and capital improvement budget. I would ask the city clerk to read the title of the budget ordinance.
An ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, adopting the final operating budget for fiscal year beginning October 1st, 2017, and ending September 30th, 2018, and the capital improvement budget, given notice to the public hearings thereon, authorizing the city manager to issue such instructions as are necessary to achieve and accomplish the service programs, authorizing the city manager or the finance director to transfer monies among the departments and programs within any fund, authorizing the city manager or the finance director, upon receipt of a donation or grant, to appropriate said funds in the expenditure line of the program as requested by the donor grantor, providing a severability clause, effective date, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion to approve the ordinance.
Move to approve.
Motion by Councilmember Gorlich. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Ross. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. I will now close the public hearing. Next item on the agenda is item G, a public hearing and second reading of an ordinance to approve the renewal of a franchise agreement with the Tampa Electric Company. Public hearing is now open, and we'll ask the city manager to explain.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. This is a second reading of an ordinance to approve the renewal of a franchise agreement with Tampa Electric Company. The attached agreement is for a continuation of service with TECO for an additional 30-year period into the future. The agreement contains substantially the same provisions as previous agreement, with one significant difference being that the rate of payback to the city is being adjusted to the maximum allowed of 6% versus the previous 5.4%. With that, we would recommend approval. I know that Mr. Denham with TICO is here if there's any questions about the agreement.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. I would like to ask if there's any comment from the public on this item. Or any comment from the public? Seeing none. Do we have any council member questions or comments? Councilmember Ross.
And I saw that there was some discussion on this at the last meeting. Again, I apologize for not being at the last meeting, but I couldn't determine from the minutes what the answer to the question was. But how did we go from 5.4% to 6%? What was the genesis of that?
We wanted more money,
That was
so
actually.
we maxed out the agreement to what the PSC is allowed.
What, do we have any estimates as to what that equates to in like per $100 of an electric bill or?
The increase in the percentage coming back to the city generates $198,000 into the new year, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's the number that we.
Per year?
Yes, sir.
Is there any estimate as to, I don't know if this is possible, but to say like per $100 of an electric bill, it's $2 or $4, I mean, is there anything way to
Well,
do that?
it'd be $6 for every $100 of a bill. I mean, it's
Instead
based
of
on that
$5.40.
6%. Yes, sir. Yeah. So, TICO, based on usage, average usage, is calculated at $198,000 for us when we requested it, just kind of get an estimate of what we're looking at.
So if your bill's $200, your bill's going up $1.20? Yeah.
Alan, you gonna come up?
Good evening. My name is Alan Denham with Tampa Electric, and our business is addressed at 702 North Franklin Street in Tampa. Vice Mayor Boss and council members, Mr. Stevenson, just wanted to clarify one of the comments that was made. The 6% for the franchise fee is not at all related to the Public Service Commission. It is a fee that cities charge at their discretion. The typical amount that cities within Florida typically charge now is 6%. And so that's the cities moving from the 5.4 where they were for the past 30 years to 6%. So it is, I just want to clarify that it's not actually related to the Public Service Commission.
Mr. Denham, I don't want to put you on the spot.
Sure.
With a question that you might not know the answer to. If you don't, that's fine. But do you know off the top of your head what Tampa charges?
All the other, Tampa is 6%, and all of the other franchise, Tampa Electric franchises are 6% at this point.
Okay, thank you.
And so it's consistent with the other ones.
Thank you for asking that. It's a good question.
Mr. Boss?
Councilmember Pagorlich.
Totally unrelated, since you're probably going to leave after this. Your crews and your company did a phenomenal job in getting us back running. And if you wouldn't mind, I know you sent us an email, would you just mind telling the public some of the stats about the number of trucks and how this compared to the last big storm and all that good stuff? Because I think it's good news. It's amazing, actually. So if you remember that, if you could just, I'm sure you do, because it's pretty amazing.
Right. Well, Councilman Pagorich, thanks very much for your comments, and thanks for the opportunity to address that. It was quite a situation that we've been in with our Hurricane Irma, and we were just so pleased with the way things came out. Just for a couple of those stats that you mentioned, we had a total of about 425,000 of our customers were impacted by the storm. We had the highest point, 355,000 of our 750,000 customers were without power. So about 50-something, almost 60% of our customers without power. The restoration, as it took place, could not have happened without all the resources that came to our aid and to the aid of others in the state. We're fortunate to have relationships with utilities throughout the southeast, and actually in this case, beyond that. We had crews, about 3,200 line workers and other utility workers, line clearance crews that came down here from as far away as Texas, Oklahoma, Maine, Canada, Ohio, and we're here in our community for, seemed like a long time, but a relatively short period of time to restore the damage that took place as a result of Irma. So we're just very fortunate to have had all those resources, coordinating with the TICO resources that were available to restore power. We just want to thank the community for their patience. We know that even a day without power or even an hour without power can be a lot, but for those that went multiple days, it tries patience, and so we really appreciate the patience of the community. Also want to just mention the cooperation and the coordination we had with the City of Temple Terrace, worked very closely with Chief Kemp, Mr. Stevenson, and others to partner on first response when the storm cleared. We had a lineman that actually rode out the storm here and was able to be out with the crews, clearing any dangerous line situations. We had other staff that were here at the EOC to be able to take customer calls and other coordination back from the city to the Tampa Electric. So we just really appreciate the opportunity to work with the city. And the thing about something like this is it doesn't just happen. It takes a lot of planning. Tampa Electric is always planning and preparing for the next emergency, whatever that might be, in this case, a hurricane. But we've partnered with the city for quite a while in that. We come to the EOC pre-storm meetings and get a chance to address members that are here as the city's preparing for storm preparation. So we're just so pleased to be partners with you all and through the storm. So thank you very much.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you said you had about 3,000 trucks on the road? Is that right?
Yeah, we had about 3,200 crews from out of state, and then another 600 or 700 TICO folks. So there was about 4,000 people that were out and about doing the restoration. That doesn't include all the folks back at the call
And
center.
this particular restoration was about twice as big as the last one and was completed in about half the time, is that right?
About that, yes. Yeah. The last storms you're referring to were the storms came through in 04.
04, right.
And, a much bigger effort and much less time. A lot of that is due to the investments we've made in our infrastructure, with the inspection and maintenance of our poles, increased standards for hardening of our system, more focus on line clearance, tree trim activity. So all those things came together and I think proved to be beneficial in this situation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? I'd be glad to, I'm here if you have anything else I can address. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. And I would like to ask the city clerk to read the title of the ordinance.
An ordinance of the City of Temple Terrace, Florida, providing a short title, providing findings and intent, granting Tampa Electric Company a non-exclusive franchise to use the public streets, alleys, highways, waterways, bridges, easements, and other public ways of the City of Temple Terrace for the construction, maintenance, and operation of an electric system in the City of Temple Terrace, prescribing the terms and conditions under which said non-exclusive rights and privileges may be exercised, providing a severability clause, effective date, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith.
Thank you. I'll entertain a motion to approve the ordinance.
I move to approve an ordinance to approve the renewal of a franchise agreement with Tampa Electric Company.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Is there any further discussion from council on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. The public hearing is closed. We're going to move back to item A.
He's playing catch up.
All right, trying, reshuffling all the paperwork around here. Well, this is a annual renewal of the public safety radio maintenance agreement, and Police Chief Ken Albano will explain the agreement.
Good evening, Vice Mayor, Boss, members of City Council, Ken Albano, your police chief. Before you this evening for your consideration and approval is the annual renewal of the Public Safety Radio Maintenance Agreement. The selection of Communications International as our vendor of choice for this equipment maintenance agreement is in keeping with the previously approved parameters of the Police Department's 2013 800 megahertz radio migration project, whereby the City Council authorized the use of Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office RFP 26-10 for the purpose of implementation of a phased build-out and ongoing maintenance of the newly acquired equipment. Since that time, HCSO has executed 2 extensions of its original contract with Communications International, written pursuant to the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office RFP 26-10. In accordance with the most recent HCSO contract extension, and upon the approval of City Council, Communications International shall continue to serve as a designated vendor for the maintenance and support of the city's public safety radio system. The annual renewal cost of the 12-month term beginning October 1st, 2017 is $49,368. Funding for this expense is included within the recently approved fiscal year 2018 annual budget. If approved, the expense will be paid from Police Department Radio Maintenance Account 001-1411-521-46-15. Staff recommends approval of the 2018 radio maintenance agreement with Communications International and will stand for questions.
Thank you, Chief. I'm going to ask is there any public comment on this item? Is there anyone from the public who would like to discuss this item? Seeing none, we'll go to council discussion. Is there any council discussion?
I think you win the prize. We've only approved the budget, 5 minutes ago. Congratulations.
You got to strike while it's hot.
And just quickly, let everybody know the reason the item was moved to the end of the
Yes.
agenda is because it's part of the next year's budget, and we had to actually go ahead and approve the budget before we can go ahead and start spending money from a budget that isn't approved. So it was just
Thus the 5-minute delay.
just a little technical lettering problem. If there's no further council discussion, I will entertain a motion to approve the annual renewal of the Public Safety Maintenance Agreement with the Communications International.
Move to approve the contract between the city and Communications International.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Now we're going to get into, we have no more public hearings. We're going to go to item 7, which is council business, which nothing was actually on the agenda, but we do have some council business to apparently address. And it's regarding city clerk and city manager salary expenses, which are not included in the annual budget. I don't have any kind of notes on this, but
So it's my understanding that the items have been included in the budget. It's just our requirement that we actually approve those increases.
For some reason, just over the course of the years, there's always been a separate agreement to entertain a motion to approve the city clerk's and the city manager's salary. Those salary increases are identical to what has been given to the general employees. And so wish of the council, whatever you wish to do with it.
Move to approve salary increases as given to the rank and file employees in this year's budget.
and we're going to do them separately. The first one will be for the city manager. There's a motion for the city manager to increase it, already budgeted in the budget for an increase of 3%. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion, and is there a second? Is there any further discussion on this item? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. If acceptable, I'll entertain a motion to approve the salary increase for the city clerk of 3%.
So moved.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion, a second, is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. We're going to move on to, well, before we move on to new business, is there any items we want to take care of in the council business that came up during the discussion?
Go ahead, Mrs. Dunn.
I do. Is it, at this point, is it appropriate for us to ask Ms. Benton and the speakers about the pond. Is that where we would have them come forward and discuss this with city manager?
Well,
Or the appropriate person, or do you want to do that at another time?
if
at new
the city
business?
manager would like to address that, I guess we can address that under council business.
Well, I don't know that we can give much information yet. I know that we were addressing the issue over there, just like we were addressing the issue at several ponds around town. I mean, we certainly understand the issue over there. We'll get on it and we'll try to get this thing fixed. So we already have had some conversation with Nate prior to this meeting about the conditions were over there. We just need to fix it. I mean, they just need to get it addressed, that's all. We've got some money, some new money in this budget that we just approved. We'll address it with some money. It's not something that's impossible, but the only thing that I can address is, again, we've spoken about this before, is cleaning out of that pond. I mean, that's a substantial expenditure to the city. I don't know that that is built into this year's budget. Again, that pond is designated by SWIFMUD as a wet pond, and one of those that we don't have to muck out or take the vegetation out on a regular basis. I believe it's every 5 years we need to certify the volume of the pond, and as far as I know, we're on task to do that. So we have implemented to try to kill some of the vegetation in there, and we're on a regular routine to do that on a monthly basis now. So hopefully that helps. I heard that there was a problem maybe with getting water to the pump, which I'm not aware of, but we'll address it, we'll get it fixed. So,
Could we, would it be reasonable for us to ask Mr. Stevenson to speak with Ms. Benton and address the pump issue, maybe report back to us at the next council meeting, kind of give us an update? Because
yeah,
it's flying from the hip here. I mean, there's
well,
no way to,
I would encourage us to do that. I mean, again, I can tell you what I know of the pond and the issue that we dealt at the pond during the storm and prior to the storm. We knew that the water level was high in there, and from the information that I've gotten from our deputy director of operations, certainly there is some work to be done over there. We're well aware of it, but as far as a solution, I'd like to have a little bit of time to try to fix that.
that's what I'm getting at.
To address it. Ms. Benton has a particular issue that we need to address with her. I haven't spoken with customer service about that yet. We have been trying to contact the owner, which we haven't been very successful at. I know Mr. Baroni has been trying to work this case. This is a very strange case that the family was actually ejected from the home by the Section 8 folks because of some of the conditions. We have been trying to work some of those conditions. Trying to get contact with the owner, I think, is the thing that we're trying to do right now. Mr. Baroni has done what he can, and certainly I think the thing needs to run its course. That being said, we'll try to work on the water bill with the previous tenants, see what we can do.
I guess what she may want to hear is she personally responsible, or is the owner responsible?
Well, without reading their lease, I'm sure that the lease talks about utilities and who pays for utilities. So, if typically, I mean, from experience, I mean, if you've got a landlord that is paying the utility bills, and that's the whole purpose of the deposit. If you don't pay the bill, they have money to pay the bill. I'm not quite sure how their lease worked out or what the conditions are with the Section 8 folks, but we'll get into it. We'll do what we can to help the situation. So,
Okay, so who should she speak to next?
I'm sorry?
Who should Ms. Benton speak?
Well, she's been in the office several times.
Okay.
She's talked with
Okay.
my assistant, and she's talked with Mr. Baroni, and we'll continue conversations. We'll see if we can get to the bottom of this, see if we can help. So, I know they've been replaced, if I'm not mistaken. Section 8 did put you back into another housing, right? Okay. So we'll see what we can do.
The reason I ask is that this, we have people who come and they come before us, and then we sit here silent because it's not the time to address it, and I'm always afraid that either both the audience sitting here and the audience at home are thinking, gee, why bother to go down to City Hall and not listening? And I just want to explain the procedure here so that I don't think people understand that all the time. I hear the comment occasionally, and it's just a procedural thing. It's not that we don't care, it's just that the way it falls in the meeting is the way it's handled.
Well, I can appreciate that, but you have to appreciate, I can't give you an answer right off. This has been going on for months.
I understand.
This is not something that happened yesterday.
I'm
It's
just-
difficult for me I could spend 2 hours, we can have Mr. Brony come up, but there's no solution in place right now. So I don't know what there is to talk about, other than we're aware of their problem. I appreciate them coming in and letting you guys know about the problem, but there's not an immediate solution that I can offer. So
Okay.
Well, you're going to give us an update in 2 weeks.
I'd be more than happy to give you an update. I think that is routinely what we've been doing in the past, rather than.
Good, thank you.
If I could just address one, are you
Go
done?
ahead.
No, go ahead.
I do have a question, and perhaps it's being handled under the city manager's report, so I don't want to jump ahead. I wanted you to give us a status on the hiring or not hiring of a new city attorney, where we are on that. If it's in your report, I'm fine to wait.
Well, we can give you a real quick update. We have drafted and reviewed the first draft of an agreement that kind of templates the city manager's agreement. Mr. Ross and Ms. Bledsoe and myself have done that. We are prepared to review it one more time, just to make sure that all our Ts are crossed and Is are dotted, but present that to the applicant by the end of the week and start negotiating with her. So I am expecting to deliver that to council in the first meeting in October.
And all the proper vetting has been done, all the Google searches and anything else that should be done has been done to your satisfaction?
They have done whatever background checks and verifications that I think they're comfortable with. So,
Okay, thank you.
If I may.
Councilmember
One last
Burbidge.
thing. Just want to address Ms. Nichter's comments. Obviously, there's always lessons learned after a catastrophe like this. But one of the things that the citizens of Temple Terrace can do, including yourself, is if you go to the website, you can sign up for notifications. Okay, well then, let me finish. Those notifications can go to your email and/or your telephone. If you didn't get the notification, because I'm signed up as well, I had a problem similar to yours. Delete it and sign up again. And make sure that you're getting the emergency notifications. There's a checkbox for that, because I did get the notice about the curfew. I did get the notice about, sandbags. I did get the notice about emergency operations and all that good stuff. So if you're not getting them, it's probably because you had the same problem I had, whatever that problem was, and I can't tell you what it is. I just know deleting unsigning up and then re-signing up did the trick.
Just real quick, since we brought up the curfew, and I'll address that issue real quickly. I believe at the Emergency Policy Group meeting on Sunday at 4 p.m., Mr. Merrill clearly addressed the apparent conflict between the city of Tampa declaring a curfew and whose authority it existed in, which was Mike Merrill's at the time, pursuant to the Emergency Policy Group's meaning that we had together on the Wednesday prior to it, and giving him executive authority to do that. So there was none declared here because there was no authority. It rested in the hands of Mike Merrill at that time, pursuant to the Emergency Policy Group, would have the leaders of the cities and the county and elected officials meet together. So there was some confusion over about whether or not authority was actually there to do what was done. And I believe Mr. Merrill clearly explained it at the 4 p.m. meeting of the Emergency Policy Group that was broadcast Sunday afternoon. Any other council business? Councilman Ross.
I do, and I just want to add my thanks very briefly to the city staff and the employees. I know I'm not the only one who's seen the work, the tremendous effort that took place both before the storm, during the storm, after the storm. It's still going on with a number of employees. I know that we know, and I know that most of the community knows as well. I have, excuse me, racked my brain for something tangible that maybe the council could do to kind of express our appreciation while at the same time not spending a nickel because we don't have any money. And it's not easy to do that. And saying thank you, I think, is sincere, and I think they understand that, but it would be nice if we could come up with something. So with that, I have thought of something that does not cost the city any money, that is tangible, and I therefore I move that we put an administrative leave day on the books for every city employee who, well, every city employee, unless they were out of town for a month or something and not even here, but every city employee, an additional day of administrative leave that must be taken over the course of the next 12 months. It has to be burned by September 30th, the last day of the next fiscal year. It is a standalone leave day. There's no pay attached to this. So if they resign before they use it, it's not like accruals that they get paid out. It doesn't get paid out. It's not a city holiday. Each employee has to have the approval of their supervisor. It'll be piecemeal. This person will be off one day, that'll be off another day. We have a variety of shifts. We have 12-hour shifts, 24-hour shifts, 8-hour shifts, and probably 10-hour shifts somewhere. So regardless of their shift, it's a day off to be used over the course of the next year. So that's my motion.
I'll second that motion.
There is a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Want to make sure that every single employee is offered the day.
That's what he said.
And not, that there are no parameters around who gets the day. That's what your motion is, correct?
That was the motion.
Yeah,
Yeah,
wonderful.
that was-
Okay.
Any other further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Motion's carried. Thank you, Andy. Again, thank you to all the employees of the city, their families, who many of them took shelter here at the library, the volunteers in our community who helped support them. I know there were some attempts by local media to get some news information out. Some of it unfortunately occurred Monday afternoon when a lot of people didn't have power, but I spoke to one of the news stations and did a couple minutes with them to try and get information out about Public Works because there was some lack of communication that was going on because people didn't have power, didn't have anything. Now, probably a lot of people didn't see it because it was Monday afternoon or Monday morning when no one had power after I'd gotten back from the trip to the EOC. So I think that was an issue, and I know our chief has been in touch with representatives from FEMA already regarding how to start the process. He's also probably meeting, and I would guess has met already or will continue to meet with the other members of our staff and our department directors to go over post-event. Look back to see what kind of things can be changed for the future, what kind of things in our comprehensive emergency management plan may need to be changed or may need to be adjusted. Some of it might be communication with the public, how to get the word out. Some people maybe don't want to come here and speak to us. Some newspapers don't. Some other people do, and they came here and spoke, and it's just some of that information wasn't put back on the web for people to see at their later date. It was just a one-time thing and didn't go back. So a lot of information might have gone out. Well, people did not have power. But our plans are pretty extensive. Everyone kind of knows what they're doing. They all know their responsibilities and roles and everything they have to do from pre-event to post-event. So as they look back on everything and see what changes they need to make for the future, I'm sure they're quite capable of doing the necessary work to go ahead and ensure that our citizens stay safe throughout any time in the future here in the city. So I think it was a great motion for them. I know everybody worked hard. And is there any other council business? Councilmember Chiller.
Thank you, Mr. Boss. I do have a question, or not a question. I'd like the council to consider. We had this discussion in depth, and I know a lot of us went through significant, extreme frustration during this budget process. There was a lot of unanswered questions. There was a lot of confusion. There was a lot of, I don't know where this number goes and that number goes. And based on that, I would like, I'm going to make a motion that our Finance Committee review a couple of different firms to do an audit of the city's finances. I think it's well in order. Mr. Stevenson even welcomed it because it's been through, this is the third administration now, that sometimes the left hand don't know what the right hand's doing. And there was, Mr. Ross brought up, there was 3 positions being, funded. And, then there was, it was understood that there was an error there. So I think that's just, I mean, I don't want to get into discussion, obviously, we all had enough of that. But I would certainly, for the health and the sake of the city, I think an audit would be in order. So that would be my motion to authorize the Finance Committee to look at some, if we have to do an RFP or whatever we have to do, and bring that to this council for consideration.
I'll second that.
There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on it?
My little discussion, more questions than discussion. I've learned a lot since the question came up of an audit. Most of what I've learned is that I don't know enough. What kind of an audit are we talking about? Because I know that there are different kinds and different levels of complexity and different goals behind them, and I'm trying to get a better understanding of, are we going to dig to the bottom of the well and try to account for every penny that's been spent? Are we talking about the last fiscal year or a 5-year period, or? And I don't know the right answer. I'm trying to understand better what it is we're trying to, I'm with you. I'm not happy with what happened. I just want to make sure that we're putting the right treatment on it and not putting a Band-Aid on the wrong thing or something like that. I'm not sure, I'm in agreement with doing something. I'm just not sure I fully understand what the right level of audit or the right time period or I'm a little, it's not your motion I'm disturbed with, it's my own ignorance, and
Yeah.
I feel I'd like to have a little more understanding.
Sure, let me help you clarify. I just want to alleviate the extreme frustrations that each of you had.
Yeah.
I mean, we were dumbfounded. We were sitting there looking at each other like, what are we doing here today? And we don't need to go back 10 years. Just this current state of this budget, do an audit of it. Is it accurate? Do we have these many positions? We're supposed to be getting a cut in health insurance. We have a $400,000 raise until Ms. Donahue said, well, what's this doing here? And then they reduced $373,000. Never was told to us that, hey, by the way, in 2 days, we're going to have the folks that jump in. An audit will reveal that, but I'm going to leave some of those parameters up to the Finance Committee because they can say, this is what's in need. And then they'll come to us with a recommendation. So I'm open to suggestions based on what the Finance Committee comes up with. I'm not saying we should do it like this or like that, but definitely we need some kind of understanding because this budget process was a disaster. I've served the city over 20 years. I've never, ever, on all the boards I've sat on, seen something in such disarray. It was embarrassing.
What's the budget committee? Who is that?
Finance Committee.
Okay, that's you?
Me, a citizen, the the finance director, and Mr. Stevenson. And if, we'll talk about it at the committee, but my first thought, and I agree, I think we need to go back at least a year, just to make sure that what they were moving forward was right. And I don't know that we need to, we can do, I guess, like what we call a standard audit, where you don't go through every receipt, but you take samplings to ensure that what we said was spent, that the procedures are right. And, I think it's good for a couple of reasons, because last year, none of you probably remember, but I remember that there were some dings in our annual report. Those dings were discussed and supposedly fixed. I'm not sure they all got fixed. So, and we've never done an audit in the city of Temple Terrace that I'm aware of. So just from maybe it's a good time to do it. We should do it, and we'll meet and bring you back by next meeting. Even if we just meet by conference call or something, we'll bring you back some suggestions for an RFP that we can move forward. And I think that's the only way we can do it is by RFP. Is that correct, Mr. Stevenson?
That would be the correct way to do it, yes.
Well, I'm sorry, if the finance committee is going to meet to discuss this, would we be wise to table this vote until you guys meet and come back and give a scope of what you think? Because I'd like to table it so I can get my arms around it. Well, I'm not opposed to doing it. I don't want you to think if we are gonna vote, I'm not gonna vote against it. I'm in favor of doing something, but I wonder if we'd be smart to let them meet between now and our next meeting and discuss the level of budget or the level of audit, the type of audit that they feel is appropriate, and then come back and tell us, this is what we think we ought to do, the last year, or
Well, the intent of my motion was, again, to do an audit. I didn't say to what degree. I left that up to the committee. So if we're going to do it, if we say we're not going to do it, then let's not waste their time. But if we are going to do it, let's give them the assignment, and they'll come back to us and say, this is the scope. And then you guys say, we want to do more, we want to do less. But at this point, I want to make sure there's a consensus of this council to go forward. If there's not, then we were sitting at the budget process. I heard everybody at the table say, yes, we should do, at least most of the people said, yes, let's do a budget, an audit. I'm not saying do it this way or this way. I'm saying put it in the hands of the folks that are dealing with the city finance committee and let them dive into it, see what's necessary, and they can reach out to, our current auditor and say, what's normal in these, what's a normal procedure, or reach out to the county. How do you guys do a normal procedure of audit? Get some ideas. I don't have that idea for you right now, but when I don't know enough about something, I speak out to the experts to find out, and then I present the options. So that's all I'm asking them to do, is bring us the options, and then we can make that decision.
well, we're saying the same things. I'm just wondering whether it's,
I think what it's just saying is you're looking at whether it's a procedural issue to go through the vote now, or just that consensus of council to give direction to the audit committee to come back to council with the appropriate kind of audit they can have and the expense related to that in the
that's what I'm
RFP, so
trying
that
to
we
get
can
at,
approve
rather
it all
than
in
us.
one fell swoop.
That's what I'm
Well,
trying to.
here's my suggestion. I think what we should do is we should vote on whether or not we're going to do an audit tonight. Once we do that, we'll bring back language for an RFP, and you guys can vote or tweak it or whatever, and hopefully we'll get it to you, not at the last minute like we have on some other issues, but enough time for you to review it, and we can improve the RFP and move forward. But I think by having a vote tonight to do an audit sends a clear message that we are going to do it, and however that final form of that audit comes out, we can then vote on that. It just should be a simple procedure to approve the RFP.
That's fine, I have no disagreement with that, so if we have a motion, a second, I think if Councilman Daniel.
I just want to make sure that when the audit committee meets, that you, and I realize that the finance director is part of that, but it's my understanding that there's an entirely new procedure going forward in collecting the information that has not been used in the past, which may hopefully solve all the problems. Doesn't mean I disagree with you, and I will vote for this amendment as well. I just want to, I kind of hate to, so in other words, let me make sure, we're just agreeing that we agree to have an audit, but the finance committee is going to direct us as to the type we end up having. There's so many out there.
Yeah, correct.
But also that needs to go in conjunction with us being explained, okay, this year, this is why this type of printing error happened as opposed to what is planned for next year. I mean, so it's really doing it is one thing, and obviously reporting it is another, because we also did not get quarterly reports in the past, and that is something that I think all of us want. I know I've been asking for that for a while. I want a quarterly report long before we get to this end of the game, and then we're like, what the heck is this? None of this makes sense. So I agree on the audit, but I think it needs to be coupled with our education as to what the actual department is doing to go forward, so that next year, it's one thing to look at last year and the year before, but now I want to make sure that going forward, we don't have this problem again.
Mr. Boss, I'm still not clear on what we're auditing. Are we auditing fiscal year 16-17, the year that we're bringing to a close, or are we auditing, how do you audit a budget year that we're not even in yet?
I think we're going to let the
committee
finance
decide.
committee take a look at it and come back to us with their recommendation is on how to go ahead and make sure that we correct any of the problems that occurred during our last budget process.
Right.
by looking at, it may be the year before's budget, it may be this one's budget, but as they look at it, they can make that decision and have the opportunity then to encompass that into the audit.
And that's, I
So
think,
it's like more open-ended for them to start looking at it and come
Right.
back with something more precise for us later.
and that's why I would feel more comfortable if we just gave them that direction instead of making a motion to approve an audit, that we don't know what year we're auditing, we don't know what type of audit we're doing, we don't know. That's why I wish we were just giving direction, saying, you guys get together, come back and tell us what kind of audit we need to do, and then let's make a motion to do it.
I think we can do both, but if we approve the motion tonight, then it doesn't get lost in the crowd and fall through the cracks.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll do it, but I gotta tell you, I think we got the cart before the horse here.
Well, and you also better come back and tell us how we're gonna pay for it.
Well, that's it too, because depending on what we're gonna do, this can cost a fortune.
I'm just reminding you guys, you all sat in this. I feel like I was in the room by myself.
weren't.
It was an absolute disaster.
Nobody's
Three
denying
times
that.
we sat in this room and said, what are we doing? I almost walked out of here twice.
I don't disagree.
I've never, ever seen such a thing. And yes, you want to audit this book you have in front of you right now because this person didn't know what this person was doing. None of it made sense. I mean, how many times did we meet? And we look at the director and we look at the finance director and they weren't communicating. You found 3 positions that were being funded when we only have 1. That's what I want the auditor to go, look, here's my budget. Is it accurate? Tell me what needs to be done, what doesn't need to be done. Just like you run a business. I want that person to get in there and tell me what's good and what's not good. And then the finance committee can come up with those parameters and we can set whatever parameters we see. But the experience I had with this budget is just not acceptable.
I'm pretty sure with keeping the request to do a budget and turn it over to the finance committee to investigate the scope of it, if we need to make an amendment to that, clarifies it a little bit. But we can propose that we pursuant to Councilman Chalora's motion and the second to go ahead and do an audit, but allow with the direction that it's the finance committee that's gonna look into the scope of it and come back to council with answers for approvals on what needs to be done.
Yeah, and just for
I think
clarification.
for discussion.
And just for clarification, I mean, when people think of an audit, you think of just looking at the numbers. My anticipation, we'll talk about it, is we're gonna look at procedures, how things get done, what we do, not just for the budget purposes, but how the finances are handled internally. We'll look at policies, procedures, we'll look at whether or not, that we are in accordance, doing things in accordance with GAAP, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So,
Okay, I think we're ready to vote.
Mr. Stevenson.
Mr. Mayor, Council, if I can just add this, as late as yesterday, I had a conversation with our auditors, our accounting firm, and they're more than willing to engage in conversation with you as well
okay.
about some of this stuff. So I told him that we would try to set up one-on-ones, but if we're going in a different direction with the committee, if it's at the pleasure of the council, we'll involve them with the committee. I think there'll be a world of knowledge. They've been doing this for a while. And I think the idea of doing procedural checks, I think is a very good place to start.
Okay, it's been motioned and discussed. If no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion is carried. Is there any other council business?
I have
Council
some
business.
more business, please.
Councilmember Chalour.
I need to know what the status of the Country Club's finances are. Mr. Regola, you and Mr. Stevenson are on this board. I've asked a month ago to get a budget numbers of them, got a pro forma, which is not acceptable. 2 weeks ago, I said it's not acceptable. And have you guys received anything to date?
Well, short answer is no, we have not. We have been in constant communication with them. Unfortunately, they haven't returned the favor. You all received a letter from Shoemaker today, or a memo from Shoemaker today, that in part discusses finances and what they're supposed to deliver. So, your request and our previous request, we've asked in the past for financials, we never got them. It's not just the city just out of the blue asking for them, it's a responsibility, their responsibility to give them to us. We're not supposed to ask for them, they're supposed to give them to us quarterly and at the end of the year. We have never received either of those, correct me if I'm wrong, Charles. As late as today, a request was made for financials. I don't know what the result of that conversation was. But we have not received anything other than the projections that you received. And I will also tell you that I am as disappointed as you. We sent them a letter telling them, and you all got a copy of that letter, sent them a letter on July 31st telling them they were in default. To the best of my knowledge, we are moving forward with the default process. And, unless they come up with a plan to repay their debts, we are going to move forward to the ultimate conclusion of the foreclosure, or whatever the proper term is, under the procedures and responsibilities as identified in the agreements.
Well, you've indicated we're moving forward with the default process. It's in default as of August 31st.
Right.
And based on what Mr. Conley sent us today, there's there's 3 pages of responsibilities that need to be spoken to, and I haven't seen any of them except submitting something, a pro forma to us. We're supposed to get a financial report, and and I want to work with the club. I think it's a great amenity in our community, but where I have my problem is when I ask for something, I'm not receiving it. We are the bank. And when you go to the bank for a loan, and you tell them, well, you're not going to get finances, you're not going to give them your financials, or you give them a pro forma, you know what the bank's going to tell you, right?
I know.
Take a hike.
Yes.
So on this, just one of the items, to deliver to leaseor, that's us, as soon as available, but no later than 15 days after the end of each calendar quarter year ending June 30th, September 30th, December 31st. Well, June 30th just passed 3 months ago, and we didn't receive anything.
That's right.
And there's a whole slew of things that need to be looked at. I asked Mr. Conley at the last meeting what our options are if there's a default. Well, there is a default. I know the folks from the club are working hard. None of them are being paid to do this. They're community folks that are trying to make this work. But there's got to be communication. I mean, the last time I think Mr. Whittemore came here, he had indicated that they're looking at different options. But at that meeting, I asked for financials, and I didn't receive financials. I received estimates, pro formas. And the last meeting, 2 weeks ago, I asked for financials, actual financials. They got to be on the books. I mean, you would think the books are there. I still haven't received them. Yes, the storm was here, but what about the 2 months before the storm? I mean, it's a simple, you go to your computer, your QuickBooks, and you print the form, and you pretty much have what you need. So my frustration is that I want to work with you, but when I ask for information, I expect to receive it, and we're not receiving it. So you have your options here of what to do if there is a default. The default's come and gone. They're working with us, which is fine, but my question is, I've asked for information, haven't received, very important information, by the way, your financials. Haven't received it. So, yes, you're working on different opportunities, and that's great. Where's the financials? Give me the financials. I mean, I've asked for them 3 times now, and we still haven't received them. So, it's not my job to reach out to the board. It's certainly your job and Mr. Stevenson's job, because we appointed you guys to do it. So, at this point, I mean, I know what I have my ideas, but the rest of this council needs to speak to this, because it's a $3 million, nut that the city's carrying, and property taxes are coming due, mortgage payment every month. We went from, $125,000 a year to $0, not even $5,000, not $10,000, $0. So, I don't want to be the only one barking here.
No.
I'm looking out for the taxpayers as well.
Your points are all well taken, and I will tell you.
I don't know where everybody stands here.
I will tell you that obviously Irma got in the way. We have, I guess, been overly nice to them, if I can say that, in deference to their predicament and the fact that it is the country club. I will tell you that I have had conversations with Mr. Stevenson in the last few days where I have told him that we need to move forward as if this were any other default. He has agreed with me. Again, as late as today, we asked for financials, we didn't get them. And I am of the opinion that We have given them multiple opportunities to come in front of us with a plan. The last time they were in front of us, they gave us some ideas they were having, some things they were fixing to do, and some hopes and some prayers about some angels coming in to bail them out. I will tell you that, for everybody to hear, that the last pro forma we got, the one thing that disappointed me greatly was that pro forma clearly showed that the club's projections did not include paying us any money on the loan. I think you all saw that. And did not include paying property taxes, and I'm sure you all saw that. Obviously, that's unacceptable. Since that time, the club has been silent. They have not, we've had discussions, on the phone, but it's been one way. They've not given us anything. We haven't seen a plan. They're not here tonight. I don't think anybody on this council has been reached out to. Maybe Mr. Voss has, since he's a member there. But admittedly, we have gone out of our way to be cooperative with them, and it's not being shared.
Okay, let me help you with some timelines here. You and Mr. Stevenson delivered a notice to the club on July 31st, 2017, giving them 30 days to come in compliance. As of August 31st, they became in default.
Yes.
Okay, which is 2 weeks before the storm. So we can't use the storm as an excuse. Having said that, remedies upon default. Let me tell you what the remedies upon default are. Leaser may require the leasee to replace all or a portion of the leasee's members on the Strategic Advisory Committee. Leaser may require the leasee replace all or a portion of its officers. Leaser may require that the leasee replace all or a portion of its board of directors. Leaser may require that leasee replace general manager. Leaser may terminate the lease. This is the document that Mr. Conley gave everybody today. This isn't my words. So they're in default. If the council wants to sit back and wait and give them more time, it's fine. Or if you want to impose something, we need to speak to this one way or the other. I asked Mr. Stevenson to reach out to the club today and have people here tonight. One person was tied up and everybody else was very busy. So there's nobody here. I'm sure they're watching, but nobody's here tonight. So we want to work with them, but my frustration is when I want to work with you and you don't provide me the information that I asked for, then we have a problem. It's not, I don't know that, I don't feel that it's fair. I didn't ask for a miracle. I asked for finances. The same thing that you give to your CPA when you go in and do your books. I didn't ask them to go create something. Just give me your finances. And I've asked 2 times over the period of a month, and I still haven't received it. So at that point, you guys want to sit back and do nothing? So be it. But if not, something needs to happen one way or the other. I want to see the club be very successful. I think it helps the city as a whole. There's no question about that. But if I'm trying to help you and I'm asking for information and it's not being provided, then that, to me, that's a slap in the face.
I have a question for whoever knows the answer. Mr. Conley, since they are in default and we sent a demand letter, does this meet the threshold for a shade meeting? Can we meet out of the sunshine to discuss strategy, options, or do we have to do this here?
Unfortunately, because there is no pending litigation, this does not provide the basis for us to meet in a shade meeting.
Well,
What if we started litigation? What if we sued them?
If we filed suit, then yes, we could. If the city filed suit, although at the same time, there's no need for you to file suit in order to avail yourselves of the default provisions under the agreement. So what you could do is make a determination as to whether or not you believe, and I think that the reason that those default provisions were expanded back in 2015 is I think before then, I think the only remedy was termination. And the discussion that was had at that point in time was that having something more than just a termination remedy would provide the city council with the flexibility to determine if there's something short of termination that the city council felt would be appropriate in the event of a default.
And Mr. Ross, I think, you know, a lawsuit might be extreme. You know, I think you have enough stringent options upon default to get the attention of the people that are running the show, shall we say, to when we ask for information, it should be provided to us pretty promptly, not a month later. So that's all I'm at. I mean, I don't, I mean, we want to be their partner, but I need them to work with us too. Not just come up here and say, we're gonna do these big, beautiful things, we're looking for options. If we ask for something, you gotta provide it. If it's something beyond your reach is one thing, but it's well within their reach, and it's not been provided. I've asked for it twice. And, you know, that's all I'm asking for is the financials at this point. But they haven't been provided.
Can I ask a question about that? When Mr. Chalura asked that, where did it go besides here?
The board was here, ma'am. Half the board was
Okay.
sitting here.
Okay, I
I
just
mean,
wanna-
when Mr. Whittemore was here and
So
half
somebody was here to
half
hear it.
the
That's-
audience
that's
was
what
the
I wanted to-
board.
Well, they were here, and then there's been
Yeah.
follow-up conversations with them since
Okay.
then. And, you know, we've heard, you know, different answers, but we've never got it. So, you know, my suggestion to you is that, and I know this is kind of, you know, giving them another opportunity, but, you know, they're obviously, like you said, Mr. Chalora, they're obviously watching this. We give them another opportunity to do what they should have been doing all along, to give us the current financials. Based on a review of those current financials, that we, as a council, consider enacting at least items 1 through 4, which means replacing all or portion of the members of the Strategic Advisory Committee, replacing all or portions of its officers, replacing all or portion of the Board of Directors, and requiring that they replace the general manager. I think, you know, that's what we're at a point now, unfortunately, that that is our option. It's either allow them to continue as business as usual, or to enact, you know, at least 1 through 4. I think 5 is the nuclear option. That's basically closing the doors. But I don't want to do that if by some strange chance of the imagination that they're working on a plan right now and they've got the financials ready for us to look at, and they submit us a plan that I don't think it's going to happen, okay, but if they submit us financials with a plan that includes paying back the loan and somehow getting out of the hole they're in, because even if you looked at that, if you looked at those projections, them not paying us doesn't help their situation. They're still underwater. So, you know, the fact that they're not paying us, even if we said yes, and I'm not suggesting we should, they still got a problem. And if they come to us to fix the problem, then maybe we don't need to do 1 through 4. But if that plan doesn't fix the problem, then I think we need to enact at least items 1 through 4 on page 2 of 6 of Mr. Connolly's memo. That's my suggestion.
Do you have an end date? Do you have a date tonight? Do you want to give them a date, or?
My suggestion is,
I realize you
again,
wanted it 2 weeks ago,
well,
but I mean.
my goal is not to have the club fail. I've lived in the city most of my life, and that the golf course certainly is a part of the fabric of the city.
Nobody here
okay?
disagrees with that.
And I think everybody up here agrees
Right.
with that. But, you know, we need their attention. And it's great that they come here, you know, every quarter and tell us these are the things we're working on. But when I ask for simple information, it should be provided to us. One time they told us they weren't going to give us financials, if you remember that. And then at the last meeting, they said, well, okay, and then they gave us projections. Well, at that last meeting, I asked for actuals, and we still haven't received the actuals. So I'm okay with them. I'm sure the word's going to spread fast. I'm okay with Mr. Pergolich or Mr. Stevenson talking, meeting with them, whatever. I'm not saying put the hammer down now and go close the doors. I'm just saying we need some attention here. This is serious. Property taxes are coming due. That's got to be paid. We're going to end up paying that as well. How much are the property taxes? Do we know?
50 grand a year.
Is that in your budget? Did you include that in your budget?
No.
I saw where you put the payment in there. I didn't see the,
We put the payment in there.
We didn't put the revenue in there.
okay. Well, I mean, we're getting put in a corner, and, you know, the noose keeps getting tightened up around our necks, and, okay, more time is great, but what are we doing here? And certainly when minimal request of finances, actuals, I think that's extremely fair to request.
Yeah.
And it's like I'm pulling teeth to try to get it.
It was our hope that we would have them to give you tonight. It didn't come through. And again, I will tell you that, in deference to the club, I think we could give them one last chance to provide those. We take a look at those, and it may be that even if we get those finances, it's not going to look good.
Right.
And we're going to have to do something, enact the remedies under the default anyway. But, I don't want to say that we're going to do that anyway, but I think they need to give us the finances, as Mr. Talora said. They need to give it to us more than 2 weeks ago. It's required under the contract that they do it every quarter. They haven't done it. But in deference to the club and to the city as a whole, because it impacts everybody, we allow them the opportunity to do what they should have done, and that's to do two things. One is give us their financials and give us their recovery plan. I think they've had plenty of time to put that together. If there's still some holes in there, they can tell us about it. But, what we heard so far when they have come in front of us is ideas, some good, some bad, but nothing in writing, nothing solid that tells us how they're going to get out of this mess.
Well, I would like to make a suggestion.
Sure.
I would like to give them a deadline of 1 week to provide finances.
That's fine.
And in the interim, I would like for you and Mr. Stevenson to engage them and flush, it's elevating to a point where something's got to happen.
Agreed.
Where are you going to go get the 50,000 out of reserve?
Yep.
We just cut stuff here and there, try to save what we could, and now you got to go pay for this, so.
We didn't put it in.
Well, that's
Yeah.
what I
That's what
mean,
he
you
said.
didn't put in,
Take
so
it
you
out
might
of
go get out of
reserve.
reserve.
Right.
So
Right.
that, we are being, and I don't want to say by being nice guys, but by being nice guys, we're getting pushed in a corner, and all we ask for is for simple information, and they provide that information, then we can sit down and say, okay, we're here as a team, what can we do together? And I agree, I don't think there's an easy fix, and there's no silver bullet where they're gonna come out and say, here's your $250,000. It's challenged. It's a challenged sport, not just this club, all over the country. But I just need a little bit of teamwork and effort when something's requested, that there's a sincere response with information that is reliable, not a projection. So I would suggest 1 week to provide financials to this council, and I would suggest that Mr. Stevenson and you, the team that the city has, meet with them and flush this stuff out. You have this document that Mr. Conley has provided to this council based on what we asked for at the last meeting. Here's where we are. Where are you guys at? What are you gonna do? Because we have to report back to the council and let them know what's going on.
Absolutely. And I think we need to do that in writing.
Just to brief council very quickly, knowing that we were always trying to get hold of them, I had a conversation with Mr. Chambers today, who sits on that board. The other two gentlemen that typically meet with us aren't available this evening, and Mr. Chambers had a family emergency to deal with. Not making any excuses, but I made a very strong attempt to tell Mr. Chambers the seriousness of what we're dealing with. That we've asked for information, we haven't gotten information. So they were put on notice today through Mr. Chambers that we're looking for this information. It's after a couple of different phone calls with James, he indicated to me that he had already begun meeting with Sean over there in order to start putting this information together. I don't know how much you need to put together. You should have them fairly available. But I'm not quite sure what that means, but I certainly think that giving them another week, I think, would be more than appropriate, and have them come back in here and explain the situation. Some of the stuff that they've been informing me of, they need to keep some of it kind of secret, but in the same token, their secrecy is kind of hurting them with some of their non-communication. I expressed this concern to this council last time we met, that more so than not having a plan is the fact that we're not hearing anything, and that's problematic to me. I mean, if you're working on something, certainly, we can work with them as long as we know that something's being worked on. But, no communication is really, really bad in the situation that we're in, so.
So, September 26th would be 1 week, and then I would ask whatever findings you guys find out, you can send an email to us, keeping us, up to date. And hopefully there's, some good discussion and good response, because, I mean, we want to work with them. If we didn't want to work with them, I think August 31st, this council would have taken action. But it's time that, we got to get some traction here and know where we're going.
It's my understanding that they're trying to reach out to each one of us to meet with us one-on-one, since they can't meet with us as a group, and that might be, answer some of our questions, Mr. Ross, things that they don't want to say publicly, they can say to us individually.
But Ms. Donahue, and I understand what you're saying,
Yeah.
that's great, but we have a committee.
Oh,
And the
absolutely.
committee's been in the dark from what they're saying.
I hear you.
So if there's something that they want to say, those meetings aren't public, right? You guys meet in closed doors.
We do.
So that's why I looked at them.
That's just my take.
I get it. They called me
Yeah.
too. And I said, sure, I'm more than happy to meet with you, but we have a committee. I don't want to sidestep the committee.
Absolutely not.
And they're going
It's
to come
just
to
for
us.
my information,
I know, I get
as
it.
I understand it.
I get it, but
Yeah.
they have opportunities to make discussion out of the public eye through our committee. And that's not being done. And I asked for finances, and that's not being done. I mean, they were just provided finances, it could ease things up a little bit. I know they're going to be ugly. I agree with that. But where are they? I don't want to ask for something 5 times. We are the bank,
I hear you.
so.
Okay, so I don't need a motion for that. I don't think Mr. Stevenson
don't
needs a
think you
motion
do.
for that. We will continue to reach out to them, let them know that September 26th is a week from tonight. That's when that's the latest date we expect to see their current up-to-date financials. And that, we also expect to see some sort of plan, even if it's not 100% finalized. And we'll move from there. And whatever we get, whenever we get it, we'll certainly pass that information along to council.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion on this topic? Any other council business?
I think we still have city manager's report.
Well, we have an item of new business.
Okay.
We have one item of new business.
We have one item, new business, item 8A on the agenda is the School Support Committee recommendation on schools eligible for grant funding for fiscal year 2017, 2018. School Support Committee Chair Jennifer Wells will explain.
I'm a teacher, it's almost my bedtime, so, good evening, Vice Mayor, council members. Again, Jennifer Wells, 6327 South Queensway, and I am here tonight in my role as chairperson of the School Support Committee. I want to thank, I think she's still here, Member Dell, for being here as well. We're here tonight because you were given a list of schools that we are planning to support this school year. At the beginning of each school year, we do look at our schools and decide, do we have the resources and what schools we are going to support. Before I talk about that, because I know that on the agenda item, it's specifically about grants, the schools that are going to be eligible for grants. But I just want to remind everyone that that's not just what we do with the School Support Committee. We do obviously appreciate having the grant funds to be able to award grants to our schools, but we also have liaisons, our members, and I do appreciate you appointing someone new tonight. I'm looking forward to working with him. But we each are assigned 2 schools. We reach out to them, we make relationships with them, we contact them regularly to find out what are things going on at your school. Help us know, what are your needs? How can we help you? Not just with money, but with all the resources that we have here in the city. So we work very closely with them at each of our meetings. We come together, we share those things. We have a district person there, we have a city council liaison there. And so we just try to make sure that we're there to help support them in ways other than just financially, to help make them be the best schools that they can be. With that being said, though, we just don't have enough people, we don't have enough resources or funding to support every school that has a Temple Terrace resident. So we feel like, well, this year, we felt it was very important, and I'm going to read from this so I get it right. We felt it was necessary to come up with the specific criteria to identify the schools that would be supported at this time. It was unanimously decided that we would support all public, nonprofit, charter, and magnet schools located within the city limits, as well as schools to which City of Temple Terrace students were assigned by Hillsborough County Public Schools. So this is how the list that you have in front of you came about. With regards to grants, we did vote to make an exception this year. The reason for that is that grant applications were sent out to schools prior to our first meeting where we made this decision. There was a school that was previously on our support list that did receive the grant information, but is not on our current support list. Based on that, the committee felt that since the school had already been sent the application, teachers had potentially been working on grant applications for a few weeks, that we should still consider any grant requests coming from that school. We also voted to extend the original application submission date by 2 weeks as a result of school closures due to Hurricane Irma. The new deadline is October 4th, which means we will review applications at our October meeting instead of our September meeting. That's what I got.
Okay.
Any questions, anything?
Tell everyone who that school is.
Okay, that was TCMS, Terrace Community Middle School, which again, we have supported in the past. Last year, we kept them on because there was talk of the city annexing, which would include them as a part of the city limits. And then we were advised that that's not happening. So at our meeting this year, we decided to go ahead and make that decision because we have a lot of schools that our kids go to by choice, and we just can't get to all of them. We've had TBT on our list before, Brooks to Barlow, Williams. It's just, and as you know, we've been meeting with the district, trying to relook at boundaries to make sure that our city residents' kids are within our city schools. So this is just kind of in continuation with that, trying to work to do the best that we can to utilize our resources in the best way.
Thank you. And just before we get to council discussion on that, I'll read off the schools so everyone's aware of them.
Okay.
But yes, at the teacher, I guess, appreciation beginning of the year luncheon, I had the opportunity to sit with Mr. Akins and spoke to him about 15 minutes or so regarding the boundary issues in Temple Terrace school populations and where they go to. And obviously, there's other things that always come up on the plate, but he's allegedly is looking at a historical perspective of where the boundaries have shifted and changed to come up with hopefully a better solution for us in the future.
And we do, just on that note, we do have a follow-up meeting with him October 30th.
And I will read the schools here. It's Armwood High School, King High School, Greco Middle School, Jennings Middle School, Lewis Elementary, Temple Terrace Elementary, River Hills Elementary, Folsom Elementary, the Notasassa Elementary, Peasel Elementary, Focus Academy, and I guess TCMS Middle School.
No,
Is-
not.
not
TCM.
anymore.
Well, for grants, yes.
grants.
For
Okay,
this,
just for
yes, yes.
Okay, so. Is there any further council discussion?
And we will communicate that with them. I'm sorry,
Yeah, that's it.
I just thought of this. We will communicate, our plan was to wait until we had approval from you all, and then we do want to reach out to TCMS and let them know, this is where we're at, and this is the reason why, just to keep that relationship.
And this is, you'll do the same analysis next year if for some strange reason 90% of TCMS is Temple Terrace kids, that will play into possibly a different decision.
It possibly
Yeah.
would. That's why we tried to come up with specific language this year, because like Williams IB, same thing, we have a big percentage there. So yes, each year we do look at it and try to take in all the factors that we can.
Bless you.
Any other further council discussion? Seeing none, if it's acceptable, I'll ask for a motion to approve the list of schools to receive grant funding.
So moved.
There's a motion to accept the schools. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion is carried. Thank you, Ms. Walsh, for staying for the.
Of course, of course, and I appreciate y'all's
We
support.
should
all
set
do.
up a text to new business members and let them know when they got a half hour around. Little chime call.
She would have been asleep. She wouldn't have got the text.
Well, I almost came up, I was hoping that Mr. Cable was here so I could come up and officially welcome him, and then I just jump right into this maybe since I was up here, but no, I appreciate it. Anytime, guys.
When they get the theater, flash the lights and get a little chime call to your house. Is there any other new business? I have none on the agenda. We'll turn it over to the city manager report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've got just a few things to bring up to council this evening. One of you have asked about the Holland status in the, as far as the agreement that Mr. Conley had been working on. I believe that agreement has been formatted and will be appearing on the next agenda for council approval. That was the $50,000, not settlement, what do you call it? Partial lien release.
Yeah.
That Mr. Conley has been working on. So that is in place. It will be coming before you here next meeting.
I thought that was dead. What happened here? Did I miss something?
He revived it.
Well, actually, it's a little bit different than that. So the purchasers of the property, Accardi Development, they have offered the city $50,000 for a partial lien release. So the document that I prepared and provided to you a few weeks ago has been reformatted so that the party that's offering the city money to get a partial lien release is Accardi Development.
Okay, good.
I want to extend my appreciation, I'm sure, for all the city staff for the day off. That certainly was certainly not something that they expected. I'm sure they're all happy about that. I'm sure they appreciate it. Certainly, I wanted to take a minute and thank my staff for the work that they did during the hurricane. It's tremendous what they did and how they're responding and how they continue to respond. They certainly make my job easier in a crisis situation like this with knowing what to do and when to do it. So with that, I'd publicly like to thank all of them for being available and stressful. Please thank your family members as well for doing without you for 3 days in some cases. And I appreciate it. I've been also asked to introduce our communication marketing director, or officer, I think is the title. Some of you have met her between EOC and the shelter last week. Some of you haven't. I'd like to ask Lori Hayes. Lori Hayes is our new communication marketing officer. Come on up and have her tell you a little bit about herself, where she comes from, and what she's been involved with here before coming to Temple Terrace.
Good evening. I'm thrilled to be here. I mean, both here and with the city of Temple Terrace. I really feel like I got to witness the best of the city during the hurricane, watching, now the people who are my fellow coworkers, their dedication and their hard work, and to be a part of that, I'm very honored to be here. I am relatively new to Florida. I've been here for 3 years. I moved from Annapolis, Maryland when it started to get too much snow. I've worked as a consultant for several places here, including the State College of Maryland, Meals and Wheels of Manatee, and most recently I was the marketing and PR manager for the Florida State Fair. So that's a little bit about my background, and again, I'm really happy to be here. Thank you.
We've got just a couple other things, and if I can bring a couple things up here. The new 2018 budget book does not have a good picture of our council and our mayor. Hopefully by the 10th, we can find out who the mayor is going to be so that we can incorporate the mayor in the book. It's bad timing. We don't have a picture of council. We'd like to be able to do that this evening. So don't run off, because we want to get a real quick picture of you guys. So, so that we can get this in the book. And then we'll take care of the other as we can.
If I may, in the past, we've always just taken a picture with the mayor and the council. Why can't we just wait for that?
Well, we can do that. I don't want to wait that long to get this book out. Just leave it with it. Whatever the pleasure of council is. I'm just trying to follow suit with what we've done in the past. So if you don't want your picture in there, I'm good with that. We do want a picture of you with some goodies that our police chief, Ken Albano, has. If I can ask the chief to come up, we've got National Night Out coming up again this year. I think he's got some goodies for you, and tell you a little bit about, I believe it says October 3rd. Is that the date?
October 3rd. Okay. October 3rd, 6 to 8. And with all that you're dealing with, and I know I don't have to stand here and tell you guys about National Night Out, but I do appreciate the opportunity the city manager has given me to share with those in the community that may not know as much about National Night Out as you do. National Night Out is celebrated twice a year all across the country. Millions of people, thousands of neighborhoods come out as a police and community partnership to renew relationships and to build upon those and to build new relationships. And part of my speak with you tonight would be to challenge you to use what I'm going to hand out to you to invite. I can't remember a time that I haven't seen all of you at one of our events. But maybe in your comings and goings, either a business person that you deal with in Temple Terrace or a neighbor that you deal with in Temple Terrace that you are close to your home that you haven't seen at National Night Out. So I'm going to challenge council. I'm going to give you one of these. And if you could just put this in the hands of somebody that you haven't seen, I mean, we're not going to tabulate anything, but if you could do that, maybe we could get some new blood down at our National Night Out event. So I'm going to pass these out to you.
We can make copies.
I believe it is on the website
Okay.
as well. Tell me it is. I believe it's on the website as well. Captain Pauly's looking at me. Stephanie told me that it was. If it's not, I'll ensure that it gets there, and we'll make sure it gets out to council electronically. In addition to that, love her or hate her, you're about to decide for yourself. I do have the goodies I want to pass out to you. There are caps and things typically that we give you, and it was suggested that it would be a great idea if council was willing possibly to place, and it's at the end of the meeting, so you don't have to worry about your hair, either place a cap on your head and a smile like you just had. I think it would go a long way in showing, I mean, I know you have the support for it, but if you would be willing to indulge that request, I think it would show the community how very much you do, in fact, support National Night Out. So I'm going to hand these out to you. Hold it or wear it, you decide, but if we could get a picture, it would be great.
I don't have any.
I have less today than I did yesterday, so I'll put it up.
Pull it down real low, so you can't see why
All right, let's see what this beautiful hat looks like.
Thanks, Chief.
All right, get your hat out. Get your hat out there, Frank, come on.
Okay, I'll wear the hat.
All right. You want the shirts?
That's greatly appreciated.
All right.
Look at you have a shotgun if I'm wearing a hat.
This is awesome. That's a great photo. Thank you so much. And the smile's priceless. Thank you very much.
You waited till after you got your 2 new officers.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Well, and now I will, since you said that, I will, now that I have the podium, you guys can kick me off of it. Speaking of officers, I just want to share with you too, and part of this community partnership, and certainly the partnership that you have with our police department, we have a number of positions open, those two new positions and additional of retirements. So if you are aware of motivated men and/or women who could step up and meet the challenges of becoming or applying to be one of our police officers here in Temple Terrace, I would love to hear from them. We have a number of positions open, and we have more retirements coming up in fiscal year 2018, so I need some good applicants. I share that with you and the members of our community. I would love nothing more than to have references from within our community that can bring forth police officers, men and women that can serve our community. So thank you.
Chief, what did we hear from the cops office about our grant request?
Deputy Chief checked on that, and they pushed back the date to next week. I should know something for sure next week. And again,
Could you send something out when you hear?
absolutely, absolutely.
you.
Because again, remember, we're seeking to have that full reimbursement thing waived, so it would cost us nothing if we can get that, and that would be a blessing. But I'll let you know for sure.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Chief.
We keep spending money as we sit here. We need to end this meeting. We spent a lot of money tonight.
It's in your lap.
If there's
Huh?
no,
It's in your lap.
if there's no other business to come before council this evening, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for being here.